about to go downtown.
Downtown, hey!
Downtown. You about to go downtown.
Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and welcome to a new season of Downtown Podcast. Don't waste no time with negativity. And I am very, very honored today to be speaking to, I don't even know where to start, but we're going to start with his name. I'm very honored to be speaking with none other than Mr. Kieran Khan, and he is the CEO, I guess you can say, of Kieran Khan Productions, and he brings a lot of visions to life. You may have heard of artists like Sean Paul, artists like Cardi B, artists like Stefflon Don, and he helps to bring their visions to life with his own unique perspectives. And as you know, downtown, don't waste no time with negativity. We love to always have the conversations you never get to hear with the people that you never really get to hear from, right? So I'm very, very honored. Welcome, Kieran.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the intro.
Thank you. It's just, your resume is so full. And guys, please Google, research, do your information, because like I definitely cannot do justice for all the years of work you put in to the city and to yourself and to your brand, like everything.
That's dope. Thanks so much for acknowledging that. I appreciate it. I mean, I've met Stefflon on a few occasions, but I have not done one of her visuals yet. But that's soon to come, though. Hopefully in the future, you know?
Call it into manifestation.
I hear that.
Yeah, so let's start off what is at the forefront of everyone's mind and what's happening to us right now. We're living through a pandemic, something I would never say. What are your views on it? How do you feel about it? What were your thoughts and feelings when it first came about? Just, you know.
Like, I mean, based on the position that I'm in, a lot of people kind of come to you for advice and direction. And sometimes we don't even have those answers ourselves. I mean, when this first happened, when a lot of people were asking me, you know, what are you going to be doing now? Do you have any sort of suggestions? I started doing, just like everyone else, those Instagram live and kind of doing it with individuals who might have the answers in those fields. So I would get like an artist, or I would get like a director, or I would get like a manager, I would get like a choreographer, anyone who can give answers to that specific group of people, and go from there. And it worked well, but I'm just not that interviewing kind of person. So I did as much as I can, and then I kind of fell back.
Yeah.
You know, during that time, you're still focusing on projects. And it got busier where, because artists were not touring, they still needed to stay relevant. So they needed a lot of content for their social medias. Yeah. So we got busy. And then you can kind of see that, you know, when the Black Lives Matter movement came about, we need to ease off of that. We can't keep pushing content or music and any of that stuff, because we need to focus on what's the problem at hand. Yeah. So we started laying a little bit back off of that. And, you know, everybody was like, they were down, man. And I was forcing myself to create so much, which I thought was a wrong idea.
Yeah.
I think it was a wrong idea for sure. Like, to the point, literally as of today, I disabled all of my social media. Well, my Instagrams, because I
realized.
Yeah, I just needed to take a break. I've been trying to do it for quite some time, since my birthday, but I never had the chance to do, because I always had something to promote. And after my last project, I was like, okay, I can probably take a break now. Whether it be a week, whether it be 2 weeks, a month, however long I can stay off of it. Yeah, I just want to kind of stay off of it, you know?
Yeah.
And it affected a lot of people. I mean, thankfully, we live in Canada, where the government has been doing a really good job with supporting their citizens, comparison to a lot of my friends who are away. My friends who are in the States, my friends who are in the Caribbean, and they're not getting any support whatsoever.
None.
Yeah, so it's tough on them. So I'm grateful for where I'm at. And the more and more I can probably do is I can just kind of speak to them, give them comfort, and even to the point where I'm taking projects that I really don't want to take to get income, just so I can support them. You know, just be like, yo, what do you need? Let me try to help you out here and there, you know?
That's real.
Yeah. Because we need to do that shit for each other, you know? And this point in time, you can kind of see who's there for you, professionally, personally, and so forth. And, you know, what you give you, hopefully you can get that back, right? We're seeing, we don't even know if tomorrow's promised.
We don't.
Yeah, so it is what it is. But that's where I'm at now, you know? That's where I'm at now, yeah.
Like, I resonate with everything you just described and said, even though I'm in somewhat of a different field, but kind of overlap, but in the sense of just being aware and listening to your body and knowing when you need to take that break and being okay with taking that break, whether it be from social media, from certain people or energies in your life. It's very important, and it's something that I find a lot of friends around feel the same, similar to you, where it's just we're being aware of those things and how certain situations make us feel and
Yeah.
really paying attention to that.
Yep. Facts. Facts. We feel like we always need to stay on top of our game, regardless of the field that we're in. And sometimes that's just not the best thing to do. So that was my fear factor. 2019 was an amazing year for me. And we're in a good page for 2020. And I was like, yo, I need to keep this momentum going.
We
You know,
had
I
it
want to
all
keep this
planned
momentum.
out.
Yeah, just like everyone else. And I was like, I need to keep this momentum going. So we kept putting out stuff. And I was like, it's feeling way too forced right now. So to the point, I was doing projects that would have taken me a day, and I'm delivering it in 2 weeks because I just don't want to do anything. And I was like, okay, let me just fall back, you know? So yeah, it's not a bad idea to take a break.
Not at all. Not at
Yeah.
all. Also, you spoke on, the fact of having to adapt to that atmosphere with the artists or the people that you would usually edit for, which is in now cultivating this content for social media as there's for like bigger screens or etc. Even though in a weird way the phones are the big screens nowadays, etc.
Yeah.
But just how much of a shift, if you could dig any deeper into that, how much of a shift was that for you? Because you have people like King Bach or certain, like a whole list of social media influencers I could say their names or speak on, to say they always create for social media, TikTok, etc. They're used to how it needs to be, ratio, etc. on what you need. If it's 15 seconds, 20 seconds, where the slices need to be. How much of like adaptation was that for you?
Um, it wasn't
Sounds
big.
like
It wasn't much of an adaptation, to be honest with you,
yeah.
because that's my feel anyhow. But I do know the content that we started putting out is we had to get extremely creative with it now. So the turnaround time and deliverables stayed the same, just the concept was very different. An example would be, you would have noticed like a lot of artists are probably doing like these live show performances. The festivals are doing live show performances. So we need to kind of figure out how we can bring that visual to these phones that we had when we were on stage. And ironically, in all honesty, a lot of them don't like doing it. They do it because they're keeping a relationship with festivals or their labels or their fan base. But it's not the same, man. Like when you go to a concert, that physical interaction with humans is different than this visual stuff that we're doing.
Most definitely.
You even see a lot of people having these OnlyFans now. And do bear in mind that OnlyFans is not just adult rated stuff.
No, not at all.
A lot of people have that misinterpretation.
But a lot of people at the same time use that to their advantage.
Oh yeah, and a lot like you're gonna start seeing that that's where they're gonna go now.
Yeah,
they're gonna stay. I thoroughly believe that those individuals, whether they're doing adult content or not, they're gonna limit what they put on their free socials, like their Instagram page or their TikToks. And that private part of their life, they're gonna make you pay for it now because you're seeing that people are willing to do that.
Exactly.
So it's definitely gonna be something that's gonna maintain. So that's just the biggest switch that we had, is trying to keep the audience attracted to what we're putting out, being that they don't have that physical interaction anymore.
And we've discussed the pandemic not at full length, and I as I said, as I always like to say, prayers out to the essential workers, and thank you guys to the essential workers and all the health workers that are really out there just on the front lines doing the work for us. My mom, she works in the healthcare industry. She doesn't have to, but she refuses to give up, I guess, on the world. So, shout out to you guys. We appreciate all the work that you do. Taking it back now and zeroing more on Kieran Khan and you as a person, and I know you've probably been asked this question many of times, but just for the sake of Downtown, it's my first time being honored to have this conversation with you. What inspired you to getting into the field of creating and putting people's visions to life and media?
Well, initially it started off because I had a company. We still have it. It's a company called Lime.TT. It's an event coverage company based in Trinidad and Tobago. And we were trying to launch it over here in Canada because we just didn't have a media house dedicated to Caribbean content, delivering it at a standard where it's attractive to sponsors and to getting different diversity
Completely
into
get
our
what you're
community.
saying.
Yeah, so it's like, you a lot of people have this misinterpretation that if you go to a reggae party, a soca party, it's ghetto, like,
Yeah.
or it's dangerous or whatever. But we do have high-end events. We do
Exactly.
have, we do go to these dope venues and we have this kind of following. And we just wanted to make sure that we can portray that on social media. So we launched that over here, and we just couldn't afford to hire staff in Canada. So I went and bought a camera. I had a 9-to-5 job. I was working in collections. And I went and I purchased a camera, and I had a few
Thank you
friends.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people feel like along their journey, you're less than if you're not 100%. Entrepreneurship is all about that. You can still be working 9 to 5, working on
100%. 100%.
So thank you so much for mentioning that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I can go in more on that. Like, I mean, I've left that job 3 times and went back to that job. I moved to Trinidad to open a club, and ironically, the country had a curfew, so we had to close the business down. I had to move back. But when you worked in collections at that point in time, you were making, if you didn't have some significant degree in a field, the income that you were making in collection, because of the commission and the salary, it's significant. So it's hard to leave because you don't know where you're going to make this money elsewhere. So I always struggle with going back and come back. So when I came back, I actually went to, it was a clothing factory, and I was doing shipping and receiving because I just didn't want to go back to that job. If I went back, I know I was going to stay for a while. So during that time, I was doing photography on the side because I had a few friends in the industry, and I did their shows and fell in love with it. And I started doing it as a part-time when I had my full-time job. And then when I had my son, I said, okay, well, if I was making this amount of money when I was doing it for just 4 hours a week, if I actually gave some time into it, I'll pretty much be okay. Because I was losing a lot of work because of my 9-to-5. So when I had my son, I devoted time to it. And that was 5-6 years ago.
Would you say your son was slightly the reason to help push you to really make that decision for yourself?
He fast-tracked it, and he made me more disciplined for sure, because before it was like, okay, cool, I'm responsible for me. So cool, like, I can figure it out, like, I can make mistakes now and I can correct it, whatever, I've always been about that. Like, before a certain age, I was like, I can do all this shit now. Yeah. And if I mess up, okay, whatever, I can fix it later on. But when you get to a certain age, you really can't afford to be making these mistakes,
It's true.
So, yeah, he made me disciplined for sure. And that's as cliche as it sounds, it's reality. Any parent that's out there understands that, some mornings we'll be like, on a Monday, we don't want to miss work, but that income for that Monday, does affect you if you have a kid or if you have a third mouth to feed or a second mouth to feed, you know what I mean? So it definitely buckles you up for sure.
I don't have children of my own, but I definitely respect the sacrifice that I know parents and people make in your family, because it's sadly, sometimes I know some situations where that switch doesn't click for some, but it's beautiful to see when it does.
Yeah.
How it just forces people to kind of level up in a sense.
Correct. And I mean, to those who, like, I think a lot of people feel that they need to figure out their path or their goals in a certain time, and you really don't, yo. Like, it just so happened that I strike gold when I was venturing into videography and photography. I started off with photography. I was terrible at it. I don't like doing it. So I stuck with videography. Yeah.
I do not. Look at your work. I'm like, I would never.
No, I don't like I tried photography so many times. Like, even when I'm on the road, like, the artist would always be like, could you take some pictures? I'd be like, all right, cool, I'll take it. But do bear in mind, this is nothing professional at all. But videos, I stuck with that. But I went through many jobs and many skills prior to figuring this one out, I went to school for aviation, and that's a totally different switch. Yeah, totally different switch. Yeah, so it just shows.
I could see you as a pilot.
Yeah, that's all. And then when I was younger, I loved it. But as I grew older, I was like, not for me. you know?
Oh my, I love the diversity. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of the times people feel like, oh, kind of a lot with singers. You'll hear, oh, I started singing in church and from there it was history. Like, there has to be more to the story. There has to
Yeah.
be, you know, a little bruises and cuts along the way.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
You mentioned, just because I'm a bit of a nerd, and you kind of mentioned it when you were speaking about Lion GT and the fact that like people would think that Caribbean parties, because my background is Jamaican, that you know the dances or the parties would look ghetto or be ghetto, right? And it's taking for visionaries like yourself, and obviously shout outs to Lil X, aka Director X now, and you know, forefathers of the game, where it's just like, okay, they've taken the time to kind of help cleanse that look or give you in Jamaica we have areas like we would say up in the hills, or you know, you go Montego Bay, for those of you who don't know, and you have some really sophisticated, beautiful parties. So to you now, because personally, one of my favorite music videos right now is the Popcorn and Prodigy video for their song. Oh, I don't want to be quoted on the name of the song. I'm always bad with that, but I can sing the song.
Okay.
But the video to me, honestly, I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. So I said, funny you mentioned it, because I was like, I love the way it looks clean. I know this is shot in Jamaica, but it's not that, like, they found a way to capture that rustic look without making it look ghetto, I guess, for a lack of a better word. You know, they had the Jeeps in there. They were on the beach. They were in the jungle. You know, catching the palm trees. But it's just the way they went about it. And you probably, I'm not sure if you have seen the video, but a lot of the times I say I felt like people like Shabba Ranks, when they did their videos, I felt like that was a close step in the direction of, all right, it doesn't have to all look like dancehall queen. But it can still carry that flavor and that sauce. Or, you know, shout outs to Sean Paul, of course. One of my favorite videos of him, Toronto. You have legendary Baby K, all those people, like, but when you're looking at the video, even though you know it's a Caribbean video, there's still, so I'm giving like multiple decades of examples. Correct. But I love that and I appreciate that. And like, what are your, you kind of shedded what your views on that were, but to dig a little deeper into that, how important is that to you that people continue to see the Caribbean, Trinidad, you know, all these places in a different light and not put it in this box like they feel like they know, like how they think all Jamaican people have dreads and foolish stereotypes you might hear like that.
Yeah, no, well, it's crazy. It's a good question because an example would be I shot a video for Sean Paul in Jamaica right before COVID. And we shot it, and the concept of the video was we were going to have 4 European or foreign females and 4 local dancers. Sean has always been huge on diversity. If you ever listen to his music, people a lot of times they categorize him as a mainstream dancehall artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They can't box him in.
Yeah, like commercial dancehall music.
Yeah.
If you go to Europe with him, it's like his fan base is crazy over there, right? Reggae is a huge deal over there, and a lot of them are white, you know?
Yeah.
So we had 4 European dancers and 4 local dancers. We incorporate them in the video. And I always think that's important for any music video that you're in, is that you can show diversity, especially if one of the biggest export for Jamaica or import is tourism. So you know what I mean? So it's like, why would we not want to expose the culture more?
Exactly.
And then they had this woman activist group that came after me so hard. I don't know if it was a group or like, but they went hard at me. They were like, this racist guy, who is this director? Why would he put white females in the forefront of a dancehall legend in Jamaica? Why should there not just be black females only? Or if that's not the case, why shouldn't just there be, or why shouldn't the main lead girl be a black female? And I was gonna ignore it. And then I was like, well, you're more than welcome to give me a call and we can discuss it, but I won't do it on the platform. They refused to give me a call. later on, eventually, one of the girls called me who were going at it. She was a more open-minded one. I think sometimes, and this was before the BLM movement. This was before all of that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't too sure what the agenda was there. And I said, and I kind of explained the concept, but then she said, oh, I totally understand. And she started following me on Instagram, and she's now like a supporter, whatever the case may be. But the whole different thing was, I was like, when you start bashing people without being open-minded or trying to educate each other, or not even having a basic conversation, things could get sticky.
Exactly.
So when we do these visuals and you want to get creative with it, it's tough to make everyone happy. But it's very important to show diversity and show an enhancement of standard when it comes to especially Caribbean music. You know, whether it be soca, calypso, reggae, dance, or whatever it may be. It's important because that's our export, man. That's our input. That's our income. You know, that's what a lot of times allows. Yeah, you know what I mean. So I would just, you know, I can't stress that enough for sure. So very good question. I like that. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I mean, it's a conversation that, you know, I feel needs to keep going, because I'm very passionate about the dancehall and Caribbean culture as well, because that is my descent, and that is the first genre of music I fallen in love with. One of my family members is basically, you could say, the dancehall queen of Toronto. So to me, not in the dancing sense, but in terms of hosting parties, being a part of the culture. Shout out to you, Nikki Hype. So it's just like, I've always been around it. I've always been privy to it, enjoying it, the culture, people selling food outside, all of those things. But we must see the elevation. We must see. I tweeted the other day on Twitter, you know, if hip hop is $1 billion industry, dancehall, reggae, Caribbean culture should be $1 trillion industry.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't sum up how I feel everything stems in that sense. So, you know, as things are continuing to happen, we even seen it more recently with the versus battle, when Beanie Man and my apologies, Beanie Man and Bounty Killer did the verses. They were the first and the only ones to do it how we usually do it, and everything following suit was the way they did it. But when the Billboard cover came out, they were nowhere to be found. So, you know, things like that I've always taken notice to, Grammys, snubbing, etc. But I guess those are just one of those.
Correct. Every year, a dancehall artist, a Jamaican artist, wins a Grammy. But they've never aired their speech.
Never.
They've never showed the acceptance. And it's so crazy when I know, like, and Sean is one of the biggest advocates for that. And he says it all the time. It's like, we don't mind people using or fusing our music, but just give us credit for it.
Exactly.
You know, just give us credit for it, because that's all we have to pass down.
Exactly.
So when I had a niece the other day who she doesn't even know who TLC or Backstreet Boys and stuff are, and I'm like, so I'm feeling old now. I'm like, shit, that's like
very
like that's what my parents used to talk about, the Eagles and people from Motown. And I'm like, there's no way, like, you should not. So and it just goes where, you know, they might think that these artists who are fusing these music, and big up to DJ Khaled, but do you remember that song that he did with Rihanna? I forgot what it's called.
Wild Thoughts, and nobody knew it was Santana. I was like,
correct. And they all thought that they created these sounds. They're like, no. And you're just hoping that they give credit to where it's due, so people understand where these music and these sounds are coming from.
Exactly.
So I think that's like a big deal for, like, especially Jamaican artists. Is like, just give us credit. We're not asking, you know, just give us credit. We don't care if you use the shit. Just give us credit. Call it dancehall. Don't call it, like Sean said, don't call it your new single. You know, call it your new dancehall single. Like, you know, put the word in there so they know.
Exactly.
You know, that's all we have. So I said, cool, fair enough.
I'm 1,000% behind that. So whenever I see it, I try to be vocal, because it is something that's important, especially when I feel like a lot of that section of the music industry is based heavily on how we did things. So that could be a very long discussion with me, Kieran.
Same here. We can have this. Yeah,
I'm very passionate about that one, for real. But, you know, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I mean, as we were saying earlier, there's so many examples of times you could have stayed with something, given up, not bet on yourself, get your son and say, you know what, I'm just gonna do UPS and call it a day, etc. You know, but you chose to push forward. If there's anything else you could add on to say what really helped you to really make that decision on top of having your son and wanting more in life, is there anything else you could pay credit to?
Yeah, like I know some of the biggest thing that gave me opportunities in life was just you know, being open-minded to new individuals and new concepts and new talent, you know. And I'm just speaking specifically about my field. You can kind of tie that in with whatever you do.
Everything, yeah.
But for me, it was like examples would be like when I was doing a video for Baby Sham here in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
And it was a quick. He was like, "Yeah, I'm just in the city, so it's just a run and gun." Shout out to Baby Sham, you know.
Every time he comes to Toronto, he damages the place.
Kills it, right? Kills it. So he was there. He's like, "Yo, I'm just doing a quick run and gun video." The producer of the track was a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, "Okay, cool." So it was like, you know, just one camera, some locations. That's it. Real run and gun shit. And this was right after I came off tour with Cardi.
Yeah.
So one of the guys that I had, he was like, "Yo, why are you doing this video?" In his head, the way he spoke about it, he was like, "You shouldn't be doing this now." And I'm like, well, first and foremost, are you crazy? It's Baby Sham.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was meaning about the Baby Sham idea. I think he was meaning like the caliber of the video. Like there was no production behind it. It was like, you know, kind of run and gun, right? And I was like, "You crazy?" I was like, at the end of the day, you never know what can come out of a project, especially somebody who's disrespected in the industry. We shot the video.
Very true.
And literally 2 weeks later, I was in Europe having dinner, and I saw a missed call from Sham. So I said, "Oh, well, I'll give him a call as soon as I can." But he called right back.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, that's strange. You know, like, so when somebody calls you, you're like, there's no way, it's something important."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Okay, cool." I called him back. He's like, "Yo, I have this producer, and he wants to shoot a music video for this artist. I'm gonna have him give you a call now. Are you available like in a week or two?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm good to go." So he said, "Okay, cool." The producer name was Dave Kelly. I don't know if you ever heard of that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dave Kelly. And Dave Kelly called me literally right after. Sorry, hold on 1 second. My apologies.
No problem.
I don't have one pass. And my little man. And so sorry to cut the story. So he called me, I'm having dinner. And then he said, "Hey, Kieran," he introduced himself. At that point in time, I wasn't too aware of who he was.
Okay.
But the name rang a bell, but it just like I didn't know, right? And he wasn't telling me who it is. He said, "Hey, are you able to come down to Jamaica to shoot a music video in a couple of weeks? There's this artist, but he can't fly out, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Yeah, I can come."
Yeah.
He said, "I'm going to send you the song, take a listen, and let me know what ideas you may have for the song." And I said, "Okay, cool." So I'm listening to the track, can't figure out who the artist is. Sounds familiar, but doesn't sound familiar. And then I called him back. I said, "Yeah, I'm good to go." And he said, "Okay, cool." I said, "Who's the artist?" He said, "Well, the artist is Buju Banton." And I'm like, "There's no way. There's no way. No way." So I thought
it happens like that, literally though.
It happens like that. I thought it was like they're still fishing for videographers or for directors. Because at that time, it's not like Buju was faded out. He was still at his peak. He just came out. He just had his huge concert in Jamaica.
Yeah, that was like, a huge time. Everyone was waiting.
Yeah. So I'm like, there's no way that. So I'm in my head, I'm like, "Oh, cool. Well, I appreciate considering me." But I thought it was like Sham just kind of told him, and he was like, "Okay, let me just kind of feel out who's best." Because he signed to Rock Nation. It's not like they don't have access. And I'm like, there's no way. So he asked me to a group, and then I get a phone call, and the guy, he introduced himself. He's like, "Hey, Kieran, it's Mark. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming on board." I said, "I appreciate you." I said, "What role do you play with Buju?" And he said, "Oh, I am Buju," because I never knew his name was Mark. And I was like, "Get the fuck out of here." I was like, "Wow." He's like, "Well, I."
And he talks really decent, but
decent, man.
You didn't even pick up the raspy thing.
No, because he does have a Brooklyn twang, huh?
But it's more clean.
Correct.
When
Yeah.
he's
He doesn't have a
speaking, you know, when Jamaicans speak, we spoke.
Yeah, he spoke correct. And I remember I've never had interaction with this man before.
Exactly.
And it was so like, I think with the amount of people that I've encountered, you don't really get shook by a lot of people, and that was like,
That
oh
would
shit,
be a
okay,
huge
cool.
one.
And
Yeah.
I played it cool, act like I was like, okay, cool. And but the long story is, the point of it was, you know, never take anyone for granted, because you don't know what opportunities come out of that person. And it could be the very smallest person. I linked with Tanisha simply because of a choreographer that was on set at another music video.
Shout out to Tanisha.
Yeah. Correct. I linked with
Doing
Sean
amazing
Paul
work.
because of a DJ that was in Toronto, and we randomly just went to a festival together, and it just flowed that way. And you don't take people for granted. Yeah, you don't take people for granted. A lot of people always think that, you know, if I'm not being compensated for it monetarily, it's not worth it. And I think that's the biggest way you can shoot yourself in the foot. You know, compensation is not always money, you know. So a lot of times people take that for granted.
I completely agree. This week I just celebrated my 29th birthday, my last year.
Happy belated.
Thank you, Kieran. And I've really been doing a whole, I'm always in a reflective state. I'm a Libra, but I've been doing a whole lot of reflection, more than usual. And that is definitely something that painfully is the truth. I'm sorry that it took me so long to realize, but exactly what you had just said there, because you never know. You never know in life. And the people that you would want to give opportunity to or maybe connect with, sometimes those are the first and the quickest ones to burn you. So you really never know.
Yep. The first day that I ever got to work for Cardi B, it was her creative director called me and said, this is the idea that they have. However, she's not aware of it, or they're not sure she's going to be comfortable with it. So is it okay if I did it pro bono for the first shoot, and then after that, if it goes well, they'll keep me on board? I said, hell yeah. You know, somebody who is too thick in their skin would be like, nah, I can't do that. Because you know she can afford it. It's not that she can't afford it. Exactly. But it wasn't about the money at that point in time. It was literally about, can we bring somebody on board who can do this and make them feel comfortable while they're around? Because although she's so outspoken, she's extremely private. So it's, you know, it's the personality, it's the understanding, it's everything that goes into your trait. You know, you can be good at it, but you can have a shitty ass personality, or you can be bubbly, but you can't deliver the job. You know, there's a balance of everything. So I tell my guys that all the time. I'm like, I'll call you about something. It might be a paid gig, or it might not. But if it's not, the compensation is going to be a totally different way, you know? And it goes a long way with these guys. So I'll stress that to anyone.
You're giving a lot of game here, and I hope, you know, when everyone's watching and listening to this interview, they really soak in. For those of you aspiring videographers and directors, like, you're giving, even I can apply this advice to myself. You're giving a lot of thank you, Kieran, because it is very important. And even though it seems so logical and straightforward, a lot of the times people need to hear that. Even within my sector of media, you know, I'll say, okay, I'll write an article or etc. on what you're doing, because that is the way I can give my gift and bring awareness to what you're doing with my words and my typing. And a lot of the times, you know, I could tell you some artists in Toronto have told me $1,000. And I'm like, $1,000 for what? Do you even understand, like, what you're charging, what you're pricing? Like, it's not all about that. Sometimes the price is, as you said, it's about something way different, or how you get that compensation. It's not always going to come in the way you think, but trust, like, sometimes the pay is just that door to be open, or the pay is just for that person to know your name, because as you said, you never know who they can recommend you to, or how things can move forward along for you. And another huge thing that I would love to piggyback on is also manners and respect. I find, like, so many people always tell me, oh my gosh, she has such good manners, like, and to me it's like, what are you talking about? Isn't everyone, like, my mom would bust my ass if I didn't say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, like, you know what I mean? So just, but it's really a thing. So for those of you, please take these wise words from Kieran. You know, he's been through it. He's worked with the great people. You wish you would have access to, and there's a reason they keep calling back his phone. You understand?
I
And
appreciate that, man.
it goes a long way. I don't know if you've ever heard of director Fatty Soprano, and he has a partner named Shutter. I always get it incorrect. I want to say Shooter, but it's Shutter, and they work as a collaborative effort in the city of Toronto. And
Okay.
you know, he was the first director I ever got to speak with, videographer, and he's now branching into the film director world and just speaking about all these things. But I find like you guys are some of the most interesting people for me to have conversations with, because you're behind the camera, you're giving us what people want to see, you're coming up with these treatments, you're bringing the visions to life. And a lot of the times people, you know, I'm not, no discredit to the talent, but they don't realize how much work goes into, as you said, you've been editing all day. They're not taking in all those hours you're spending behind the screen, putting those pieces of the puzzles together to now create the grand creation. What is that experience like for you every time to get to that finish line? Do you ever feel like you're at the finish line?
Yeah, well, ironically, it's like you're hitting so many points with which I had recent conversations about, and we were speaking about like a shoot that we did, and it was one of the most strenuous shoots I've ever had in my life. And it was just the final product is all we have, you know. So at some point in time, it's like, you know, you'll have an example be like, you'll have an artist, they'll have a vision, and in their head, which in fact should be the case if they're
It's
paying
not
for a job.
realistic.
It's sometimes not realistic for sure. And you just have to you have to manage expectations, you know. The first, like the manager that I have, the first time I was doing like a big project, he said, you know, it's a big deal to always over deliver, but don't tell them that you're over delivering, you know. So if this is what they want, tell them you probably cannot do it, or just suggest something else, but give them exactly what they asked for initially or more than that. And you will always be on top of your game. And a lot of artists might not understand the strenuousness that goes through the process. Some of them do, but I think some of them get to a point where they're like, yo, if I'm paying for this is what I want to get. And you just have to grow thick skin and, you know, deal with it as it comes forth. And that's just a game sometimes, you know. Excuses is really not even an option. They're not trying to hear it. They don't care. They just want you to get the job done, and that's it. So you just need to understand how to manage your expectations from the beginning, you know? And that's
I feel like that's like one of the largest, now that you say it like that, that sounds like one of the largest parts of the job. Managing expectations.
Yeah. Like, you know, like somebody, if you tell somebody, yo, I'll be there in 5 minutes, you know, but it's going to be in half an hour, you know, tell them, yo, give me an hour, I'll be there. But you're there in a half an hour. Huge, like they're mentally prepared. They're good, you know, but that 5 minutes, you just create an issue that shouldn't even be there. Like, you know what I mean? You created an issue that shouldn't even be there. But yeah, that's a good point. Even another point I want to touch on, it's we have a lot of videographers in Toronto, and I'm speaking about Toronto because that's where I live, and I had a conversation with them many times, and they're doing music videos, and they're coming up with these crazy visuals, and they don't understand their worth at all in terms of pricing. And I don't know if it's because they just don't have knowledge about what pricing is, how to probably rate themselves, or like, you know, I think it's
that
all
would be
about
one of the number ones.
They probably knowledge, and I'm thinking so. So like sometimes when I see it, it's not me trying to overstep my bounds, but I see one of my friends doing it, I'll be like, yo, so how are you charging for this? And why are you charging that price? And like I saw a kid, he advertised he was doing $1,000 or $1,500 in music videos, and I'm like,
that's usually the average. And
I'm like, what? I was like, no, these are not right. And I was speaking to him, and he's like, yeah, a lot of the local talent, they don't have money for it. And I said, what? I said, hold on. I said, when I see your music videos, I'm seeing the treatment. So I'm seeing whether they have visuals in the club where they're purchasing bottles. I'm seeing them renting Lamborghinis, Rolls Royce, Ferraris, which I know the price for it because we rent them out all the time.
Airbnbs.
Airbnbs. But the least paid is a director.
Yep.
And I said, you guys need to set that standard. You know, here's the bad thing about it. The bad thing about it is, you know, you're gonna lose clients. Like I said, you're gonna lose clients though, but you're gonna raise your standard and the quality you're gonna give. Like, there's no way in my even prior to even doing videos for any of these guys, I was not doing that. I'd rather do like sometimes when also call me and I'd be like, yo, that track is hard. I actually really want to do the video, but I can't do it for that price. So I'll actually do it for free, but here's our agreement. You know, and that way you preserve your price or you preserve your value. So they can never be like, you know, Kieran did a video for $1,000 or $1,500. Kieran did me a video, but this is what I got to give him later on. You know, whether that might be I get to put it on my YouTube channel, whether it is that he owes me, if he blows up, he owes me a free performance or some shit like that down the line.
Exactly.
Whatever the case may be, you're investing in the longevity, right?
Exactly.
And it's tough. Like, I was like, yo, let's create a videographer union.
I was just about to say that to you. I said you should definitely do something like that.
We've done it in Trinidad, where we've actually done a union. We have a pool of videographers, and if a client messages someone, they instantly put it in the group. Hey, a client just contacted me. This is the rate that I gave them. If they come forth, then you understand my rate, right? Yeah. So if they select you over me, then they're selecting you based on talent, not based on cost. You're not undercutting me, right?
And that would cut so many, sorry, Karen, but that would cut so many of the issues and complaints that I hear from people, whether it's on the artist side or the videographer side of the city, because that's a lot of the drama as well.
100%.
Turnover 100%. Time, all these things.
There's no way that an artist can tell me in Toronto that I cannot afford to pay you, I can only afford to pay you $1,000, $1,500. And they're not taking shots at artists at all, because there are some of them who that's all they probably could afford. You know, they're doing this right now as a hope that they bust. You know.
But as well, Kieran, a lot of these videographers also need to understand that they're not you. Like, I'm sorry to be as abrupt, but they're not you. Yeah. So you can't be charging me $5,000 for a video, etc. You haven't even put
agreed as well.
You haven't even put in this amount of hours or this amount of time, or you know what I mean? These kind of programs, you're not bringing these cameras, like.
Agreed.
So just like you're saying, people need to understand the balance.
Yeah. There's a level of production that, I mean, somebody would pay if they want to pay $5,000 or they want to pay $20,000.
Exactly.
They need to understand that what you're paying for, what the deliverables are. You know, sometimes they're like, I want to pay you $5,000, but I want that $20,000 video. And it's like, well, we really can't do that. You know, we just don't have the budget for it. You know, it is what it is. But I would just trust the videographers. You know, try, whether it is that you increased your budget by $100 every shoot when it comes to an artist, or you have that agreement in the beginning.
That's how music artists do it.
Yeah, like I have, like they'd be like, listen, I can do it for $1,500 now, but the next video, you know, we need to do $2,000, or we need to do $2,500, you know, and sign an agreement, man. Like these verbal agreements these days are they're nothing.
Black and white.
I signed agreements with, like, I just drafted contracts I just signed, whether it be very basic or not. I had a you remember Manny Fresh?
Of course.
Yeah, from Cash Money. So
I'm a music nerd, so I'm not the typical. I'm a heavy music nerd. So
okay, fair enough. I'm just asking in case, you never know. We were doing a shoot here in Toronto because he was doing the World Beat Battle. He was a judge. Dope. And one of the questions he was asking about, this is when the whole Lil Wayne and Baby was going through him not paying him for the money that he was owed.
Yeah.
And they were kind of asking him about, you know, what's the situation with you guys? And he's like, you know, we're all good. He said, I know legally I have nothing to show. But he said the mistake I will never make again is doing the homie agreement. He said that's where he got screwed. Like, they were growing up, they were friends, and they all decided when they pop off that, you know, each person's going to get their fair share. He's the only one that never signed a contract.
Exactly.
Never. He could have had the money that Lil Wayne has. He could have the money that Baby has. But he said, right now it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, never knew that. Never knew that.
But
I
I
was like, oh,
appreciate that he's going about it like that, as opposed to how Mace has been going about it with Diddy. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I forgot his I think that his new name, Loon, that just came out from prison. I think his new name or rebirth name is Amir. I don't want to get it wrong. It's something along those lines. But he used to be the artist with Diddy, Loon, which is mostly known for the I Need a Girl part 1 and 2 with
Okay, yeah.
So I had asked him about similar situation and, you know, with Mace and everything, what's going on and what his views are. And if Diddy like owes him any money, he's like, honestly, when it came to me, I can't speak for everyone else in Bad Boy, but it's business for me. I made sure my like my lyrics were mine, he made sure all of his ducks were in a row so that when it came time to get paid, he just had no issues. He made his deal. And a lot of the times it's like certain people will get upset or jealous with you off of the result they may see you have with someone else. But as Charlemagne has been saying a lot these days, you get the deal you negotiate.
Correct.
Period.
Correct. Facts.
So take for those of you watching, take with that what you may, but you definitely get what you negotiate. So, you know, I can never look at the next journalist and be like, how did she get this interview, et cetera, et cetera. Number one, my time will come. And number two, maybe it's just not the right fit for me. You never know what leads people. So as in your world, I completely like agree with everything you're sharing with these young people, whether it's a union they need to start, whether it's speaking to people like yourself, X, whoever they can speak with to understand how they should be doing their pricing, knowing their worth, and understanding the business a bit more. Because like you said, we haven't even gotten to speaking about actual cameras and films yet. We've talked, if you're taking in the talk, you know what I mean? But you're giving a lot of real game up the business. Managing expectations. I wanted to speak with you about trust and loyalty and how you build your workers, because that's a huge part of your work. You're getting called to locations, places with celebrities where trust and loyalty is a huge thing.
Yeah, 100%.
What are your views on that? You're like, yeah.
It's for the industry that we're in. It's extremely hard to develop that. But the easiest thing is that when it's not hard to differentiate or see when somebody's not loyal to you. As much as we like to overthink that shit, it's literally in front of our face a lot of the times. You see it in their persona, you see it in their wording, you see it in their face when they're speaking to you, and it's just around you. And it's just very easy to see somebody who's pure-hearted comparison to somebody who's not. I did a video for an artist, and he had another artist on his label that I also did a video the exact same time. There was some sort of it seemed kind of weird how the agreement happened, where the artist that who was on the label I was doing a video for didn't communicate that he was not the one paying for the video, but it was the artist who runs the label that was going to pay for it. And then when I was called into a meeting, he was like, "Hey, Kieran, we never knew about it." So I said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "All the information was sent to us. It wasn't communicated." He's like, "No." And I said, "Don't even worry about it. Don't pay for this. I'll deal with the artist directly." And he was going to pay for it just out of handling business. And out of that simple thing, he was like, we shot 2 more videos just because, right? There's scenarios where you're around artists, and the first thing they do give you NDAs.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that you can see with these high profile artists, if you sell it to a blog, or if you speak about it, or if you just anonymously tip somebody, you can get paid a very lot.
Yeah.
So when you're working with somebody for for such a long time, and none of that has happened around you, it shows some sort of ethics in you that you don't really care about those things, and your self-respect goes a lot further. But you see cutthroat on a daily business, and I would just say
It's
You know, you don't really can't
disgusting.
give advice on it. You just got to be like, just be you, man, because they would see it.
Because if
Yeah,
you're a snake, when they cut the grass, it will show.
yeah, they would see. They would see the funny behaviors. They would see and communicate. They would see a lot of the times too. Don't feel bad to explain yourself. A lot of people would be like, they would not try to explain themselves, but explain yourself sometimes, and it makes it a little bit easier. They just think it might blow over, but that little conversation goes a very, very long way. I was doing a video shoot, and the bus driver of that vehicle, who had all the dancers in the vehicle,
Yeah.
decided to come on set and watch the video. He left the bus unattended, and it just so happened that somebody robbed the entire bus. The bus driver told the artist that I sent the bus driver down the hill to drop, like, one of the girls, which is very true.
Yeah.
However, this is way early in the day,
Yeah.
and he was back on site that time, which everybody attests to. And the artist definitely believed me, but I said, let me have a conversation with the bus driver. I said, no, you don't need to say that. I said, I said the artist is a very fair person, and if there's a hiccup that was created, it was created. However, don't tarnish somebody else's name.
Exactly.
It just so happened that when I was speaking to him, and he was like, yeah, fair enough. He's like, I honestly thought it happened when you sent me downhill. It just so happened that the artist was not too far from us where he actually heard the conversation.
Wow.
And that in itself spoke volumes. He's like, my apologies. I really thought that you did this and blah, blah. And those conversations go a very, very long way, So I would tell people, like, you would see the snakes, man. You would see who's there for you, who's not there for you. Some people are there for business, and that's cool. Some people are there for, for you and your growth.
Yeah.
And, you just got to cherish those people for sure.
The person that we have in common, I mean, like during this quarantine time, sometimes I just feel like, why do you, sometimes it's hard for me to accept why you place so many blessings in my life. But as she explained to me, she's like, I could see the genuineness in you. I could see the pureness in you. And I appreciate that. And though I still sometimes don't see or know what she's talking about, because to me, I'm just being myself.
Correct. Yep.
It does bring you a far way, because I could say, even during this quarantine, there's a lot of people, including yourself, that she has said, I want you to, and I just have to say thank you to God and thank you to her and accept my blessings and move forward.
Yeah.
There's some people, they'll look at you and they'll spite you, or they'll not realize who is around the corner listening.
Yeah. Correct. Correct. They'll see it, man. And you just gotta let it be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I know I'm getting close to my time. I really don't want to push it. And big respect on time. But a question that I really feel, I will be honest, like I could talk to you for a very long time.
Same here, yo. Trust me.
really love speaking with you. I feel like we could go on for hours and really have some great conversation.
I hear that. We will for sure.
We will.
We're in the same city, Yeah.
We will. But I must ask you this question. It is a staple. Well, I have two staple questions that I do ask here at Downtown. Don't waste no time with negativity. What is a recent situation or a situation that might have happened that was negative and you really could have decided? I know we've kind of spoken on a lot in that regard, but you really could have went one way, but you decided to not waste any time with negativity and keep things as namaste as possible. What is the situation you could say?
Let me think about that one. I have a good tolerance for not focusing on it, man. As soon as I get an inkling, it hasn't been around. Like, I know a lot, like I've seen a lot of Instagram posts about, during COVID, they've filtered out a lot of people in their life. They've filtered out, whether it be family member, friends, or whatever. And it actually just reconfirmed, the people I have around me is the people I need to stay around. So I haven't had any sort of, knock on wood, any sort of terrible situations in the recent present where it has affected me drastically, or I was like, because I stay clear of that, I'm on a better path. So I'm gonna just say thank God for that, but I don't have an answer for that one, for real.
This is a first actually on Downtown. Yeah. That's to me one of the biggest answers, because that's exactly what I want to get to, and what I feel a lot of us want to get to, that real peace, that real state of like just gratitude and living within that. When your repellent for negativity is so strong,
Like,
that's not
correct.
even,
I like the word.
you know what I mean? It's not even anywhere close to you. Like, I can only aspire to that. I love that. Love that. And I hope it does continue for you, because you deserve
I
it.
appreciate it. I hope so. Knock on wood for that.
And with all the things you got to see and edit and vision, you need your mind to be clear. So you can't be
Correct. Like, you know, some people say, yo, I ain't got time for that. Like, for real.
You really don't. Like, your mind needs to be clear to come up with these treatments. So,
correct.
and the last staple question that we have is, you have the 4 elements. You have earth, wind, fire, and water. Which element do you resonate with, or do you feel represents you the most, and why? I know I'm a bit deep, you could say.
Yeah. I would say, I guess, like, I've never had that question, but if I did have to relate to one of those elements, I would probably say like wind for sure, which is because I'm like extremely free flowing. I'm extremely spontaneous. I don't like sticking around. Yeah, probably that, you know. I think the spontaneousness is why I have no regrets when COVID came around, you know. I remember when you're on the road and you're exhausted, but you're in a new city. A lot of the people, they stay in their hotel rooms, they sleep, and then they go to work next day, and then they do the same thing on repeat. I'll never do that.
Yeah.
And literally when COVID came around, we have like a group, and they all said, we will never tell you no to go into the bar again. We will never say no to go into the club again. We will go, like, you know, and living with those no regrets and just going, you know, I think a lot of people use that word too often, that no word, you know. I think they need to let that shit go. You know, you don't know what can happen if you just try new things, meet new people, and just go with the flow. Just let that be. And a lot would happen. Yeah.
This is the first year that I really said to myself, you know what? I'm just going to say yes, like, as much as possible. Because we do have that fear. And I do feel that there is a healthy amount of fear that everyone should have.
Yeah.
Healthy, to each their own of what that measurement is, but a healthy dosage, right? We'll say for this part of the conversation, your meter isn't too high.
No, but that's real. Like, I mean, sadly enough, it's now, and I'm sorry to hear that it's only now kicking in, you know? Like, for you. Like, you're saying, you know, you said this year, like, you know, it's like somebody goes through life or death experience, they start living, you know, somebody who had cancer or some sort of chronic illness,
what it is.
You know?
What it is.
And for us, like COVID, that's what it did for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, shitty enough, you know, we don't know what's going to happen after COVID. So let's say it didn't go well. A lot of people's going to have regrets, yo.
It's true.
So if this comes and goes, just consider it a second life and just try to live it as best as you can. That's all we have. People be like, life is too short. Life is the longest thing we have, yo.
It's
true. It literally is the longest thing we have. So just go with it.
It's true. And that's the first time I've ever had someone choose wind. I've never gotten that, but I really love your explanation of it. It really makes me look at wind a bit differently today.
I appreciate it. First time I had that question. I was like, what?
I like to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's dope.
Thank you for being so open to this conversation, and thank you. Like, you really shared a lot of wisdom. I don't really admit this a lot, but like, I know it's my podcast, etc. But I really sometimes, like, I feel like this is going to be one of those interviews I'm going to go back and end up watching about 5 or 6 times just for myself to like get all this game again, because sometimes when you're in it, you're not, you know, really in everything.
That's sick to hear. I like that. I appreciate that a lot, man.
No, you're
and the more and more you do this, the more and more you're gonna be with some dope people. This shit is gonna grow, because like you said, you link with people who's just genuine, and shit is just gonna happen. Like, you know, I would be like if I didn't know anybody who's like an interviewer, host, or didn't have a show, and the only one that I had would have been you, or even if I knew other people that I wasn't pleasant with, like I would just, on the back of my head, I would be like, oh, maybe we can connect her with something, you know, just because of your spirit and your personality, you know,
Thank you.
regardless of how it may be. And if you keep doing it more and more, those dots would just connect, man, you know.
Thank
They
you.
would just
I hope
connect.
not to. And
Yeah.
if one time you could just say for everyone, don't waste no time with negativity. We get that.
Yeah. Cool. Don't waste no time with negativity.
Period. You heard it.
Period.
Kieran Khan, CEO, leader, visionary. How would you describe yourself? I know we're at the end, but I could give you all the accolades. It sucks sometimes when people says, tell me about yourself. But
Yeah.
how would you describe yourself, Kieran? I didn't really ask you that.
I don't know. I'm just a goer, man.
That
I
is
guess, you know,
description.
just a goer, you know.
A goer.
just keep going. I'm just a goer for real. Like, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, for real.
You gotta keep
Just a
going.
goer. Just gotta keep going, man. Just a goer, yo. And I think one thing that I would love to just also finish on, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Like, you know, especially because of COVID, and I'm assuming a lot of other people might not in the creative industry might, you know, they might not be feeling creative. One of the things that I've been focusing on is getting my business in gear, in a line. So when all this is done, you know, that's what we need to fall back on, you know.
Goer.
Yeah. So get your business, like, because you're always busy. You never have time to do your stuff. So I finally got my biography written. I finally got my emails like created. I finally got my website done. I finally started doing taxes and started doing logos and started.
It sounds so simple, but it's so true.
Yeah. And start putting my my reel together and all these different things that I just haven't done ever.
Yep.
Which, you know, which is, we don't have to be creative for that. You know, we can get our business in gear.
Yep.
So when, you know, that opportunity arises, simple as business bank accounts, man, you know, if you're applying for grants, all these different things, get yourself in a gear. So when this thing blows over, you're there, you're ready. It's not going to be hard. You're not going to waste time. So that's what I've been telling a lot of people. They're like, yo, I was like, just get your business in a gear, yo. So try to focus on that and you should be good. You know?
You're 1000% right. Like, a lot of the times when you look at history and you see how millionaires and certain people have come about, it's moments like this where something really unexpected happens and you either sink or you swim.
Correct. Yep.
So you decide where you want to be. I'm so excited for this conversation. Like, I get like, you know, when I just feel like I've gotten so much good information. I'm a bit of a weirdo. But
no, I like that. That's fine.
I really appreciate it because this is what I do it for. My platform, I don't gossip. We don't talk about the baby mother, baby father drama. And I do understand that that's maybe something that has stunted me from maybe getting as popular as I would to platforms like Six Buzz, etc. But I'm okay with that because quality over quantity for me. And when I got to speak with amazing people like yourself, I know timeless, moving on, this is the content that people will go back to and really appreciate. So I thank you for sacrificing some of your time. I know you're a very busy man. You have a lot to edit.
Thanks, man. Yeah, credibility goes a long way. Keep that up, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is dope. I look forward to seeing whatever you draft up after this.
Thank you. I cannot wait. And you have a wonderful night. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Downtown. Don't waste no time with negativity. We're here with Kieran Khan, GOAT, in his own lane, in his own right, goer, telling you to go get your business in order. I can't stress this enough. Replay, repeat, and enjoy. Learn.
There we go. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Blessings.
About to go downtown.
Downtown, hey!